Hi, Brandon. Thank you so much for connecting with me today in this podcast. I really, really appreciate it. Super excited to know more about you and your journey. So, how are you today?
I'm doing very well. Been a great day. The sun's shining. I have nothing to complain about, you know?
I was here. It's just raining and everything. It's a cloudy day, so it was a
Oh,
really nice day.
honestly, I'm getting ready. I'm in Ohio, and the weather here is getting ready to switch. So
Mm,
all the leaves are that beautiful color. This is my favorite season. It's
yeah,
beautiful outside. There's so many colors. And then after this, it just looks like death everywhere because all the
yeah.
leaves are gone and everything. So I'm enjoying the fact that I have a sunny day and all the beautiful leaves out there.
That's great, man. That's great. So, yeah, before we get to the topic which we're going to talk about, which is mental health and bipolar disorder, you really want to talk about that. Obviously, this is how your company is being born, to be honest, because of
Yeah.
the mental health issues. So, before we get to that, we want to know, our audience wants to know who is Brandon Rocha and how you started your career and a journey. So, tell us.
Yeah, I gotcha. So, Brandon Croucher is an individual who, just like everybody else in the world, he really had a hard time learning and to love himself and see that it might be different in
Mhm.
good ways.
Yeah,
Um, I was a pastor at one point in my life, foster dad. I've run one of the largest Starbucks in the world. I've owned my own restaurants. I have two master's degrees, and all these things I still lay my head down at night, and because of my mental illness, I sit there and I tell myself, "You haven't done shit." Sorry if I'm not allowed to swear. I'm sorry. I should ask that first. You haven't
it's
done
okay.
anything.
Yeah.
Uh, like you're not. You still have more work to do. And I'm 38 years old, and when I tell my full story, people look at me and they're like, "You have lived the life of like a 60-year-old," and I'm like, "Yeah, I get it." And my thing is between all of those, I had to take life lessons. And instead of look at
Mhm.
them as them beating me down, I
Yeah.
wanted to find the positive in them. And that's just how I was raised. My parents have always been like, you can do more. What are you doing to do more? And it
Yeah.
wasn't like they were hard on me like that. They were, but they weren't. But it's like, I knew I had to be able to break out of myself. There was something
Mhm.
in me that I couldn't find. And honestly, the funniest part about it was when I started getting into learning about mental health, learning about
Yeah.
how to help myself. Doctors just kept prescribing me pill after pill. I was on 15 pills a day, and yet I still in my mind wanted to kill
Wow.
myself. I literally I couldn't lay my head down and feel comfortable. I felt like my
Yeah.
skin was burning off. It sucked.
Is
And
that you was dealing with anxiety or depression?
anxiety, depression,
Both,
bipolar
yeah.
disorder, and then I got manic depressive when the
Yeah.
bipolar started kicking in, which then you start to isolate. And then once you're isolating, it's like it's really hard to climb out of that hole.
Hmm.
And the thing is, what a lot of people, I did what a lot of people do. I started turning to other things. I started
Yeah.
turning to looking for a partner that was going to fill me up, to looking for drugs, friends, like partying, business, anything I
Yeah.
could that would keep me busy and distracted. And the truth is, I was at work in my job at Starbucks. I was running this Starbucks at the Cleveland Clinic Hospital,
Yeah.
and I'm looking out. It's third shift, and I see doctors and nurses, and they're all putting things in their drinks, from creamers to sweeteners and all this stuff. And it hit me. How can I walk out to my car at the end of a shift and I have to go smoke something to help
Yeah.
reset myself when all these other people are doing these drinks and all this other stuff? And I want them to want to know about this plant and I want them to know about this stuff. So for me, my anxiety was so bad, it always
Mm.
would trigger anger to depression, to all these things. One day I just had enough. My fiance and I were having a big discussion
Yeah.
and it wasn't going well. And just like any couple, that you
Yeah.
fight.
Yeah.
And we had an all-out brawl, like her and I just screaming at each other. And inside me, I hated it because I know she didn't do anything wrong. And I'm
Yeah.
fighting with her because something in me is fighting me, and she's fighting me because something's in her. And the thing was, we looked at each other, and I said, "I need a timeout." And that was something I've never done. And she looked at me
Mm.
like I was like crazy, and she kept fighting, saying those things to get me to come back. And I wasn't going to tolerate it. I said, look, I need a break. I need to step away for 20 minutes to reset. I need to calm myself down. Long story short is I would go and smoke. And that was
Right.
how I'd reset myself. And that wasn't healthy because I saw that I was relying on even that, but it brought me to that point of that calm to rebalance the situation.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for her and the stress of my job, I wouldn't have come up with the company I had. I was working this third shift. I saw the doctors getting ready to put stuff in their
Mm.
drinks, and it hit me. CBD is something that a lot of people don't know the benefits of. And if I needed to help keep myself calm and balanced, how can I get it to where everybody can? I didn't want to
Yeah.
make a CBD coffee. I didn't want to choose like, hey, here's a flavored oil, here's gummies. I wanted it to be something where the person gets to experience themselves. They get to find what it's like inside them. I made my own thing then. I quit my job, jumped on a plane, flew to California, lived in a grow facility for 6 months, sleeping on a floor,
Yeah.
had a great savings, and I knew I needed to do it to follow my own dream and what I was seeing. And created my own packets. It's individual, odorless, colorless, tasteless, full spectrum CBD. And the reason I did this is because with my bipolar, whenever it kicks in, there's times where you need to reset yourself and find your calm
Yeah.
again in life to get that balance. Because even if we disagree on something, we can find the delight in the situation. And that was what I wanted. So my whole brand has been built on that. We focus on mental health and then the benefits of what we could do with plants and all that. And then we focus on how you can actually look inside yourself to find that light and
Yeah.
really let it shine bright. And I've been blessed. I've had a lot of people that have like, I don't want the attention because I hated always being out front. I'm a
Yeah.
big personality. So when I do come out front, you're going to know. But I didn't want to be the face for my company because I was fearful of not living up to the expectations. In
Right.
the last few months, it's been amazing to watch things develop because I took that responsibility on and said, this is who Brandon really is. And I fell in love with myself for the first time. I pulled myself away from friends, family, everything, and got alone. And my company was built when I was alone. And then learning to actually realize what that meant was totally different. And it was a challenge, don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
I see it now, and I get an email at least 2 or 3 a day, somebody telling me, hey, don't ever change. You're doing things. I watch your shows. I listen to your podcasts. I read your blog. I want you to know that I'm alive because I read something that you wrote. And for me, I used to think that as pressure, but the way I've changed my mentality is you're not coming to me. I'm just the
Yeah.
vessel that's showing you how to look into yourself. And that's where my whole company is based on. So people find that light.
Yeah, that's great, man. Like that's a great journey you had. So I have a lot of questions for you, but start with one. So basically, how the your mental health problem started? When do you find out? Is it like a early stage or middle of the career switching? Well, when it actually happened?
So what happened was I actually was a youth pastor at the time. I was married, got married very young,
Mm.
finished college. I was married at 19. And I
Wow.
don't recommend, right?
Yeah.
Like you're not grown up enough. You don't know things and all this.
Yeah.
And I learned from that mistake. The biggest thing I learned is at 19, most people are still figuring themselves out.
Yeah.
And my ex-wife was figuring herself out still. I was a youth pastor at a church at 21, and everybody else at 21 is out drinking and having fun. And
Yeah.
I'm sitting here going, all right, we're going to have foster kids. And I wanted to grow up so fast. And I've
Mm.
always been like that. And one day I walked in on her having an affair, and it just hit me between the eyes, and it like really broke me. And I just realized like, this is my wife. This is who God chose me to be with, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And she wants to go be with so many other people. She's doing this, and it just hurts me. And it meant I didn't love myself. And so for me,
Right.
I checked into a psych ward because I wanted to hurt myself. Those negative thoughts were 10 times louder than they had ever been before. And so I
Mm.
started noticing it. And when I checked myself into the psych ward, they kept me there for 10 days. I was on 15 pills a day. When I got out, I couldn't hold down a job. And all of a sudden inside me, I'm like, this isn't right. So I kept calling my therapist. I kept scheduling things. When I started getting diagnosed, I was just early 20s, mid 20s. 25 was about the age when it like started to really start to kick
Yeah.
in. And now I'm in my 30s. And they say 27 to 35 for men is the ages that it kicks in the most, and where
Right.
mental health starts to like be seen. And I think that that's a thing that a lot of people don't know. We call it anger, we call it depression, we give it all these other names, but the thing is, they have a pain. Excuse me, they have a
Yeah.
pain that they don't know is a root cause to it. And for me, I wanted to find my root cause and be able to use that pain as a springboard to help others see that they can get out of that dark too.
Yeah, yeah, that's quite interesting thing, like getting married early age and not knowing like who you are, especially you and your wife at that time. Because that time, like everyone experiencing different things, like they don't know what to do with the career wise, the job wise, especially you get a burden of it. So you said like you've been foster caring like other children. Is that like
Yeah.
when he was 21 years old or like a later?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So at 21, my wife was a teacher for special ed kids, and she
mhm,
actually taught in a hospital system.
right.
She actually taught the kids that were too fragile to go into schools. So
Yeah,
she would teach in a hospital. The one day she comes home and she was crying, and she's like, "I need you to go to the hospital with me tomorrow." And
yeah,
I'm like, "Okay." This little boy, he was born very premature. He was born at 5 months, which obviously is very early,
yeah,
and he wasn't even a full pound. And his parents were told he's not going to live. He was in an
yeah,
incubator, and she just goes, his parents left because the hospital told him he's going to die. So they just, and left. And I couldn't believe that. So when
yeah.
we went in, I got to actually wear the gloves. I put my hand in there. That kid changed my life, Malik. He is an amazing little boy. My ex-wife does still have custody. We still talk now and then. It's not like it used to be. She's remarried, but because of being able to be in his life while we were foster parents, through the adoption process, we actually, everything they said that kid wouldn't do, we took as a challenge to make him do. So like, he'll
Mhm.
never walk. Guess what? He walked before he was 2 years old. He'll never be able to talk. He speaks 4 languages now, and he actually speaks
Oh,
five if you count sign language. He's small. Don't get me wrong. He was still a preemie and all this, but everything they said he couldn't do, we saw him do, and just
yeah,
gave him love. So that was how we got into foster care. Is this little boy whose parents just they thought he was going to pass away.
yeah,
When we finally got to the adoption, his dad stood in court crying, and he had his arm around me, and he goes, "This guy is more of a father to my son than I ever was, and I want him to be able to be his dad." And that just meant the world to me. And that's why my ex-wife and I, while we don't see eye to eye on
yeah.
everything anymore, we're able to still know for the best interest of him, we can put our best foot forwards.
Yeah, I can relate you to that, like how strong you have to be in order to raise such a child like this, because we had experienced that 6 months ago. Our son is going through like a similar kind of situation, with brain damage and everything. So yeah, I
Yeah.
can totally understand that, especially like when you early 20s and going through that kind of situation. It's not easy, especially like if being foster caring. There is a plenty of responsibility and also special needs, special care all the time.
And the thing is, people, when you do foster care, a lot of people give you that praise, like, "Oh, that's so good." But the thing is,
Yeah,
the hoops you jump through with these families and with these kids, it's not like having your own kid. It is a
yeah,
completely different world. The regulations are different. The giving them
yeah,
getting them dressed is different. Cutting their hair even is an ordeal. And for him, he's a little African American boy. I don't know if you know
mm.
this or not. I don't have any hair, so I don't know how to cut his hair in any way.
Yeah,
Like I had to learn so many things. And what was the most interesting was I left the church I was a youth pastor for, big
yeah,
church in the suburbs, and I started going to church in the inner city just because I felt compelled to. Became a youth pastor there, and to this day I can walk the streets in like some really bad areas and
mm.
be the crazy white guy that walks around and everybody knows. And I like that because it meant I made an impact on that community, and for
Yeah,
me, that's how I want to live my life. So it's I learned a lot from that kid, and I still get to. I get to watch him grow, and I'm proud of it.
yeah. He did a really amazing thing. Great. So you got lots of prayers for him and everything. Hope everyone can learn from you as well, like in terms of like not to give up. like his parents gave up on him, so you guys took care of him, and so that like actual being optimistic about it, right?
Exactly. We knew. So we had him, and then we had like what we did wrong was we fostered too many kids too fast.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, we got him, and then within a month, we had a 3-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 1-year-old. And all of them had extreme special needs. The
Mm.
2-year-old actually had half of a heart and a pacemaker in. She had open heart surgery 4 times every year because she's still growing. She's a kid.
Yeah.
They had to keep replacing it. How do you tell a 2-year-old they're going in for a surgery that most adults get petrified of? You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And it was one of these things we put ourselves in these situations thinking we were doing the right thing, but it was pulling my wife and I apart. And the truth is, I'm grateful it did, because it led me to where I am today.
Yeah.
And that hope that I saw that I was giving to those kids, I'm able to actually give to myself. And if I didn't do the foster care thing,
Hmm.
I'd probably still be that guy out there just giving to everybody and not actually seeing what my impact can be.
Yeah, everything happens for a reason though, and you can
Yeah.
learn from it, and that's a great experience. But at the same time, like you can take it back, like you probably took too much on your plate at the same time. That
Yeah.
led to like your mental health issue, because we can take certain things, especially like on your like early 20s, and having it, because we have like a one child who's going through the difficulties, and we know how much burden it is sometimes, and the mentally like you have to deal with it, especially like you were doing before 4, 5 kids, and you're running your marriage as well, like you both are married at the same time, so there's some more
Yep.
responsibility. And yeah, it's like a proper journey you had.
It's a journey, but the thing is, like you said, like you have a young kid and you learn a lot, especially when your kid has a disability or has
Yeah.
something where they need that little bit extra attention. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't understand is like,
Mhm.
I know a ton of people who to this day, if they see their kid has something, they think there's something wrong with them. And I've never looked at my kids as they had something wrong. I looked at
Yeah.
they have more to teach me then. They have a bigger love than I need to learn from. And that's a hard thing, especially as a parent, because you want that kid to thrive.
Yeah.
And I learned that like some nights when they're just crying and they don't even know why, that just curling up next to them is sometimes all they needed. I didn't need to have an answer. I just needed to hold them and let them know they're okay. And for me, it made me learn that's what I have to do to myself sometimes. That alone and comforting and reading, spending alone time was essential. Those kids taught me a lot about my life.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just build your own character, and you've been through a lot. So now any kind of big situation comes through your life, now you know how to handle it. It makes life
Correct.
so much easier, right? And what made you like going from like a career to career? Is that like you are searching for your passion, or is that something like you're escaping because of your mental illness?
So that's actually a great question. At first, I always thought I was escaping. I really
Mhm.
did. I thought it was my mental illness being like, I'm tired of this, I'm done.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I could make excuses. Oh, well, I caught my wife in an affair. So the job that I was having when depression kicked in, I just couldn't
Yeah.
handle it. Things like that. But I literally got into jobs that taught me so much. I didn't jump from them in weird ways. I jumped from running a nonprofit helping kids in the inner city
Mm.
while being a foster dad to working at a restaurant to like learn about healthy food. And I started cooking. So when I got up to, I was just under 300 pounds. Now I'm at, what am I at? I'm just under 200 now. And I've kept it there for a few
Wow.
years. I'm right between 190, 200, and I keep it there. But like, I was so overweight. Like my stomach was touching the grill while I was cooking. And
Hmm.
that's just unhealthy. And
Yeah.
I saw this. And for me, the unhealthy part of that, I needed to find other ways of coping. And so that's how I ended up into the restaurant industry. So I understood the exercise part. I understood the like mental part, needing to meditate, read, and all
Yeah.
that. But the diet, the alone time, I was still learning. And so I ended up at the restaurant, and I'm just this personality that I'm like, oh, it's going to be this, and we're going to do all these great things. And I planned events, and people would come in from all over the city to just do these random events like yoga. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd do this huge yoga event. We'd have 1,500 people outside all doing yoga. And I do it just because I wanted people to find a way out, their way to
Yeah.
find that new thing. I didn't realize I was doing it for myself, meaning I needed that for myself. And I was putting these on. And truth be told, every job I went to, because like at the restaurant I owned, there was a
Mm.
Starbucks directly across the street. And how to know you're doing well is when Starbucks comes over and offers you a job to get out of putting them. I was hurting their business so bad, they needed to hire me. And that's how I ended up running one of the largest Starbucks in the world. And at that job, I hit records that they never thought they'd be able to see: cleanliness scores, customer connections. And all I did was take the knowledge I learned from my foster kids, my youth ministry degree, and then the kids that I was running around the streets with. All those kids just wanted was that little bit of extra attention to let them know what they're doing is right and they can keep going. I
Yeah.
did the same thing with all my employees, and it blew up. It turned out to be this amazing thing. And then I felt the universe tell me it's time to go. And I jumped on that plane and I moved because I saw the thing with the light. I saw it in my head so clearly that my future is meant to be to help people understand this plant. To
Yeah.
this day, I don't regret it. Don't get me wrong. Everybody likes to tell their journey, but I've been through hell and back, which a lot of CEOs say. But the thing is, I would not change a single thing. I've got 3 international healthcare awards now. I'm speaking in Dubai in a few months. I'm speaking at an international conference this weekend for marijuana. I'm speaking at healthcare conferences around the world because I don't look at it as a plant that should be saying, look, it's going to get you this or that. It's going to get you high. It's going to make you this. I look at it and say, here's what we know and here's what we don't know. How
Yeah.
can we work together? And that's what the doctors like, because they don't want to be told what to do. They don't want to be told they're wrong. And nobody does. I say, here's A and B. How do we get to C?
Absolutely. And so when did you actually find out, like, you realized I'm having a mental issue that I need to make change on myself? When that trigger moment happened?
The trigger moment. So I was first diagnosed with bipolar 2 disorder at 25. By
Yeah.
27, I was going through the divorce, and it was just your normal life. When you go through a massive change and you feel your life's changing around you, I saw the depression, and it was like the whole downward part of like a roller coaster.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the roller coaster does take you back up. And by the time I started seeing how the ebbs and flows worked, I learned a lot about myself and how whenever you have a good, it's like a pendulum, you're going to have a bad. It's going to be just as equal. So if you only do good, when the bad comes, you're not going to be able to balance it because you're not used to bad. And
Right.
so I had to learn all of that. And I'd have to say within the last 3 years, it really kicked into how to keep that balance and learn myself in a totally different way. So like 30, what am I, 38? So 35 would be the age that I would say. So 10 years of life lessons. And just every time I climbed that mountain, I think I'm getting to the top and then kick back down by depression. Well, now this is my season that I usually have depression start kicking in, and I'm doing the opposite. I'm running hard, and I'm loving life, and I'm putting it out there in such a way that I just want to be able to shine my light and hope that it sparks a light in you.
Yeah, that's great. Like, then is it like when you started your company? How did you get started with your company, and how did you find CBD?
So I actually, when I had my healthcare restaurant, I actually had a health food restaurant. I literally was cooking and all this, and some of the guests that came in, I became friends with. I never even knew what the cannabis plant looked like. I knew the drawings of it and stuff like that, but if you put it in front of me, I would have had no clue.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Hey, we're having a party. Why don't you come?" And I'm like, "All right, I guess. Like, I don't know you that well, but cool." I ended up going, and people were smoking, and they actually offered it to me. And I said, I've never smoked. And they were really nice. And they were like, they took me under their wing and said, let's try. Well, here, we're right here with you. If you don't like how you feel, we're right here. Okay. And I thought that was really cool. So they opened up a door for me. That's something that I always heard was bad. Wacky tobacco, stuff like that, And I'm like, oh man, I don't want the devil's.
Yeah. So you were saying about how you got started with your company, then CBD. Yeah.
So the friends actually invited me, and it was the way they opened up so openly with it. They were very genuine. They saw that I was someone who I'm willing to try things,
Yeah.
but I always was told the negatives of this plant. And so the first time I tried it, I was just like anybody else. Like I didn't enjoy it because I didn't know what I was getting into, and all of my negative thoughts were in there. And it took me a few times of going over there with them, understanding it, hanging out one-on-one, asking questions. And as I started to enjoy it, it was like drinking. Anybody that drank as a teenager, they're like, oh, stuff like that. And as they got older, they liked certain things and didn't like certain things. Same thing with the plant, with the cannabis plant.
Mm-hmm.
My thing was smoking it is not going to be an option for everybody. Oils are not an option for everybody. Gummies don't work for everybody. So it was like, I really wanted to find that what I can do that would be different. I didn't know that much about this plant. I've never grown it. I've only been able to know people that get it. And I've never been able to, so for me, when I quit my job and jumped on a plane, I literally was taking the biggest risk of my life. I was going out and I was going to go into these grow facilities and ask to learn. And I've already LinkedIn messaged people and we'll give you a tour. But then when they see I come out there, one guy, he goes, his name's Chris. He goes, hey, come here. You have nowhere to go. And I'm like, no. And he's like, would you want to sleep here? And I'm like, well, I don't have a bed or anything. I don't have an air mattress.
Yeah.
He's like, that's fine. Like, just let's go get you a blanket and a pillow. And if you're willing to work some, I'll let you stay here for free. And that way you can make money and everything. And I'm like, thank you. So I did that for 6 months. And his head grower, they had an indoor and an outdoor grow. He just took me under his wing and said, all right, I'm going to teach you. And he even said, he goes, look, I'm a pothead. And he loved to smoke. He wanted to get high 24/7. And for me, that's the type of person that a lot of people get scared of because they have this negative stereotype of it. They don't know what it's like.
Yeah.
He had his own demons deep down inside, and that was what he was burying. And him and I became so close that his teachings were stuff that I still use today. I still learn from today. And he sits there, and anytime he sees one of my shows, he's like, I want you to know I'm proud of you. You're not afraid to go stand out front and say this is what it is. And it's such a new industry. And that's been the biggest problem is people hear CBD and they hear the cannabis plant. They don't understand there's so many other cannabinoids. There's so much that's there. And we have those same cannabinoids in our body. And the best part is our governments know this. So I started doing more research. Do you know what CBN is?
No, not sure. Even though CBD, I'm not 100% on it because it's not legal in our country in the UK. So my next question would be like, is it legalized in US?
It is. So in 2018, the United States government released the Farm Bill. The Farm Bill was the opening of hemp, industrial hemp and hemp, not cannabis as a whole.
Yeah.
And it's just CBD with 0.03% THC or less. And the interesting thing is the banks in the United States still will not touch it. You have to do everything by cash. And if you do credit cards, it's the record, higher taxes, higher interest, all these things. It's ridiculous. But the thing is, a lot of people don't know what CBD is. It's just the cannabinoid. Like they don't know. If I said isolate, broad spectrum, or full spectrum, I get this glossy look over people's face when it's really easy to explain. The cannabinoid in CBD, if you wanted an isolate, it would be taking the plant and isolating just the cannabinoid, the CBD cannabinoid. Not CBN, not CBG, not CBO, not THC. It's the one cannabinoid isolated. So you need a lot more of that to get the feel of what a full spectrum product would be, which is the entire plant. But you also have broad spectrum. Broad spectrum is the broad area of the plant. It's meaning it gets you a lot of the cannabinoids, but not everything. So when you're actually using CBD or cannabis as a whole, you want to find that full spectrum product because of the fact it gives you everything that that plant was supposed to give you. It's not just isolating it and pulling it out. So when people hear CBD, a lot of people refer to it. I don't know if you've heard this saying, snake oil. Have you ever heard of a snake oil salesman?
Yeah.
A lot of people think CBD is like that. It's how can it help my anxiety? How does it help my depression? How does it relieve pain when I put it on certain areas? The thing is your body's producing it, and the CBD helps your body know what is hurting where. So
Right.
if you suffer from anxiety, adding a pack of Delight to your morning coffee helps you keep that balance throughout the day. So things that might be triggers, such as driving to work and spilling your coffee on yourself, don't upset you as much as they used to. And that's without having to smoke anything.
Right.
Where having other cannabinoids do other things. So there's a lot of research being done with CBG, which is same type of thing as CBD, but it's a whole nother cannabinoid. But
Okay.
when you actually make that the main focused one, they're seeing how veterans who have
Mhm.
PTSD and people with extremely like drastic mental health issues,
Yeah.
how CBG can actually help bring them into a normal state, back to where they were compared to the medicines that they're being prescribed, compared to all these other things. Then you have CBN. CBN is a cannabinoid that is produced in your body that is the last cannabinoid on the plant. It takes 2 weeks longer to get that one to sprout just to get it right. But your body produces that. You ever have trouble sleeping?
No, I'm fine.
Well, that
I,
just killed my thing. That just killed
yeah.
what I was going to do.
As soon as
But
I
a
hit
lot
the
of people
bed, I just go done.
out.
Yeah.
I'm jealous. That's all I have to say is jealous. With the cannabinoid CBN, when you take it, you will fall asleep naturally. A lot of people have trouble sleeping and they take
Yeah.
melatonin. The thing with melatonin is it has addictive qualities. It has
Mm.
things in you that when you take it, you might only take 5 milligrams, but then all of a sudden you notice you're not sleeping as well as you used to because you're taking it every night. So you up it to 10, you up it to 20, and you keep doing that. With CBN, your body naturally tells it, okay, it's time to go to sleep, and it helps you get to that REM cycles that you want to go through in your sleep to get a good night's sleep and rest. So for me, it's taking this science that has been readily available for so many years and showing where the governments are showing, oh, well, we have done tests here, but we don't want everybody to know about it, so it's down here. And I bring it to the light, and I've gone in front of medical journals and talked to them about this. And then when I showed them that even on their website, they've talked about this 10 years ago, they're like, wait, what? So it's like I took what was there, and instead of reinventing the wheel, I just said, wait a minute, there is a wheel here that we can use. Why aren't we using it the right way? And that was how my company just kept growing. My future, I'm going to have more cannabinoid plants. I want to help people because they're seeing the benefits from all those other cannabinoids, the CBG, CBO, CBN, like I was saying. They're seeing them help in so many different areas. There's so many things from cancer research to mental health. I just want to be able to provide people a chance to reset themselves, to keep that balance in life. Because I'll tell you this, everybody's stressed. And we all feel this anxiety of the world right now with COVID and everything. Finding a positive light is very difficult. And when you suffer from mental health issues, you know how easy it is to find that negative. And I just wanted to be able to find that positive and give people a reason.
Absolutely. So is it like a doctor prescribed this, like CBD or not?
That's actually a great question. So there are states, the state of Ohio. You can get a doctor's prescription. You can go into a dispensary and buy your CBD.
Right.
Like they have extreme plants that have like a heavy amount of CBD with a heavy amount of THC because they counteract each other to help with things. So epilepsy is a mental disorder that the brain is just shooting too many chemicals at once. It's moving too fast. But when you have a heavy dose of CBD, it actually keeps somebody with epilepsy from having seizures. It keeps their mind from shooting off those sparks so fast. And it helps them keep their self. So you can get that. But it'd be like going to your doctor and instead of taking a pain pill at home for a little bit of a backache, you're actually getting an extreme pill that's going to make sure you're going to feel it. So that's the difference between the two. In California, just as another example, it's completely legalized. So if you went into a store in California and you were like, hey, I have epilepsy, the guy behind the counter should know to be able to say, all right, we're going to take you to the CBD and the THC aisle to show you what these things you're going to want to do, whether you're oils, lotions, gummies, and they match you up to what you want. But like I said, this is still a newer industry. So there's a lot of learning that's going on. And that's why when you have legal and medical, and then you have completely not legal in certain states, it creates this disparity between people and not able to connect with what we should be doing and paying money into research. And that's where a lot of our people are trying to get to.
Yeah, that's interesting to know. Like I said, in our country, it's not legal, and not many people are talking about it. So if anyone talking about like a weed or something like that, oh, you are a drug dealer, you know what I mean? So
Right? That's hilarious you say that. So I'm speaking in Dubai at a health conference this in
yeah,
January. And what's funny about that is the fact that it's not legal there. And I'm going in to talk about marijuana as a whole in the medical industry. The
yeah,
first time I did it, the first question I got was, how do I know you're not just some drug dealer pushing it on people?
yeah,
And they did not like my response at first because I was like, well, I'm not your actual doctor. And they thought that was like a slap. But I'm like, when you take the time to look at what we're doing, when you take the time to see that the plant, you can grow yourself, you can help yourself, there's so many different things. So I started analyzing like what's in pills to what's in the plant, and then how you can take care of yourself with it. And I was showing the doctors how what they're prescribing is being actually used for the opiate epidemic in the United States right now. So many doctors, so many people were overdosing like crazy.
yeah,
It's become a heroin problem. Well, isn't it ironic that hospitals in New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, they're actually using heavy doses of CBD wax. So that means it's like a lot stronger. It's going right into the bloodstream. But they're using this to help get people who are addicted to these heavy drugs to slowly get them off the drugs and help them get back to being sober again. And that's something that I'm amazed by, because this thing that we've all been told is so bad, we're now using to help fix people to get back to themselves.
yeah. There is so many research and everything going on. Like you can cure cancer for so many different things we never thought about we could. Like for example, snake venom uses for some kind of medication. I'm not 100% sure,
Correct.
but probably like for cancer treatment. And no one thought about it, but right now they actually doing it, like a chemotherapy, the injection they put through. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so many different ones.
And it's amazing. And that's the thing, is the money that goes into research.
Yeah,
It's so in the United States alone, I know the numbers here. I don't know the numbers worldwide,
yeah,
but 96% of the money that goes into funding research of the cannabis plant goes into finding the negative sides of the cannabis plant, and then is marketed like that. And for me, if I give you $100 and $96 you're going to have to use to go find what's wrong with that plant and write about, that 4% that could go towards finding the benefits of it is never going to be able to catch up because of how much more money is going into the negatives.
yeah,
And that's something that I love to be able to see us break. I love seeing these things, like these barriers, start to fall down, because I'm this like bubbly light bulb guy, and people see me on stage. I have a full sleeve Ninja Turtle tattoo and they laugh. And they're like, who is this? And then by the time I'm done, I just want them to, I'm literally presenting them options and making them think. And by the time I'm done, they want to talk and know more about this, because this is something that there's evidence out there. The proof is in the pudding, as they say. And I just decided, if I can get 2 master's degrees while having foster kids, I'm not an idiot. So why don't I take my smarts and put it into the best way I can? And that's what I did.
yeah. That's great, man. So, what's the future vision for your company?
So I would love to be able to be the CBD brand of the world. And I don't mean that in a light way. I sound crazy when people hear that, especially being the little small fish that I am right now. But the truth is, there's so much confusion behind it. And the people that are taking the lead are people who people see like Snoop Dogg. Snoop Dogg knows what he's doing, but he's always had that reputation in there. People understand what he's saying, but he still speaks over a lot of people's heads. So for me, I want to be able to create that brand that, whether you're in church or whether you're on your way to the doctor and you are really having a panic attack and you need to be able to reset yourself, it's able to just open it up and know what you're putting in. My podcasts I do are Starting the Days with Positivity is the same concept. It's our day starts with what we put in. And so many people they can pick up their phone and start comparing themselves to their friends and family right away on social media. or they pick up their phone and see they didn't get things done and they jump on the computer and then their day starts stressed. And they're always running to the next thing. The word busy is so common. Well, for me, I want to provide that positive way so that first domino that falls in your day is a positive one. It's not one making you feel the anxiety. It's not one making you feel stressed. So my future is I want to be able to provide people a chance to find that light inside themselves, see that there are people that are looking for it, and then at the end of it all, know that they can be who they are and be confident in themselves. So my brand is all about people loving themselves.
That's great, man. I love that. So we are running out of our time. So if anyone wants to reach out to you or like know more about your brand, know more about yourself, your podcast, so how they find you?
Very easy. So you can email me at brandon@delightcafe.com. That's BRANDON at delight, DELIGHTCAFE.com. If you want to be able to observe the shows, Delight's Digital Cafe is on every major platform from Google to Amazon to YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. And we go live every day, Monday through Friday. At your time zone, it would be in the afternoon, where my time zone, it's first thing in the morning. But it doesn't matter when you tune in. It's about finding that positivity. And we interview uplifting people, and we'd love just hit the subscribe button on YouTube. So that way, you know, when we go on, you'll see throughout the week our bios, who's coming up, who's doing what. Maybe you don't connect with the guy on Monday, but the lady that's going to be on Friday, you're like, oh, wow, she's talking about something I'm really interested in. And for me, that's all we want, is to be able to find that thing for you to be able to really connect deeper and find your you.
Yeah, that's great, man. So thank you so much for coming to our show and sharing your journey, and really appreciate it, and your vision also. I wish you good luck with your company and the vision you have. So
Thank you.
Yeah, take care of yourself.
You too. I appreciate it. Please reach out anytime. Thank you.
I will do. All right, guys, this is a wrap. So till then, stay safe, stay healthy. I'll talk to you in the next episode. Take care.